Officer Carl Reese pulled him over. No siren, no warning, just the sharp territorial bark of, "Hey, you! Step away from the gate." The man turned slowly, not startled, not scared, just deliberate. Dark suit, no tie, leather folder in, hand. He looked more like a federal witness than a threat, but Carl didn't see that. All he saw was a black man on the wrong side of a whitewashed fence. A second patrol car rolled up like it knew its cue. Two more uniforms stepped out, stiff and synchronized. No questions, no clipboard, no intent to de-escalate. They were backup, but not for danger, for dominance. Carl had already painted the picture. The others were just coloring it in. The man didn't flinch. "I'm on official business," he said. Voice calm, smooth like someone who doesn't raise it unless it counts. Carl grinned. That smug kind of smirk. "Not with that suit, you're not. Put your hands where I can see 'em." There was no tension in Carl's voice, just routine. The cuffs clicked before anyone asked his name. To Carl, this wasn't a stop. It was a performance. A jogger slowed down across the street. A neighbor paused in her window. No one said anything, because this looked familiar. It looked normal. A black man. A suit. A folder. Wrong zip code. Wrong time of day. Carl didn't see credentials. He saw a canvas to project suspicion on. But what no one knew, what no one bothered to ask, was that the man now cuffed to a cruiser wasn't just walking. He was working. That leather folder? It wasn't paperwork. It was the tail end of a federal operation. "You're going to regret this," he told Carl. And he didn't say it like a threat. He said it like a headline, waiting to drop. Because this wasn't just a racially charged mistake. It was arrogance in uniform, so certain it never imagined it could be wrong. So now ask yourself, what happens when the man you try to detain turns out to own the investigation you just ruined? Who is he? Why didn't he resist? And what did he really come here to do? Drop your theories in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. And if you believe quiet power hits harder than loud injustice, hit that subscribe. You're going to want to witness this takedown. Huntsville, Alabama, where front porches creaked with history, and discipline wasn't just taught. It was required. That's where Elijah Kane learned silence. Not the kind that hides, but the kind that waits. His mother worked nights, stitching broken people back together in a county ER. His father, a quiet man with a stare that could freeze a storm, taught Elijah that calm was its own kind of weapon. But the world didn't see it that way. It mistook his quiet for weakness, mistook his brilliance for luck. When he got suspended in 8th grade for talking back, without ever raising his voice, he didn't argue. He just took notes. And when he got that scholarship they said was unexpected, he built something brick by brick, starting with the walls they tried to close in around him. Law school came next, then intelligence. He rose quietly, never loud, never messy. He traced cartel routes across digital shadows. He uncovered internal leaks no one else could touch. And every time a mission tipped toward collapse, they called him. Not for flash, but for finish. He never gave a press conference, never raised his hand for credit, because Elijah Kane didn't care about recognition. He cared about record, and he kept them, even when they mistook him for a delivery guy, while briefing the U.S. Senate. Even when a corrupt officer he helped convict showed up 5 years later, still wearing a badge, now a lieutenant. Elijah didn't raise his voice. He just opened a new folder, started a new file. Now, he mentors cadets who think no one's watching, audits precincts that think they're too clean to question. He enters rooms last, speaks after everyone else. Because power isn't in the first word, it's in the last proof. And that brings us to Carl Reese. Detective, mid-50s, polished badge, stiff spine. He walks like every space belongs to him, laughs at things that shouldn't be funny. His charm is a costume, fitted for press conferences and deflection. Around Elijah? He stiffens, not from fear, from unfamiliarity, because Carl's used to power that looks like him, not like this. Then there's Officer Bradley Trent, young, fresh out of the academy, all sharp lines and agreeable smiles. White, green, eager to please. Carl loves him. Sharp kid, he says, clapping his shoulder. Knows how to follow the chain. Meanwhile, Elijah, older, calmer, infinitely more qualified, barely gets a glance, not because of who he is, but because of what Carl thinks he sees. Have you ever felt misjudged before people even knew who you were? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The moment Carl stepped closer, everything about his posture shifted. Not official, not procedural. Predatory. People like you, he said under his breath just loud enough to stain the air, always act like the rules don't apply. He wasn't reading from a rule book. He was reading from memory, from bias, from years of subtle power plays no one had ever questioned. Elijah stood still. Carl stepped in, chest puffed like a rooster in uniform. You can't just loiter near this property in a suit like that. You either live here or you don't. The words were loaded, but Elijah's answer was clean. You sure you want to do this? Carl didn't answer. Instead, with a flick of irritation and theater, he slapped the folder from Elijah's hands. It hit the pavement with a sound that made heads turn. Papers scattered, neat files now fluttering, across the sidewalk like forgotten truth. Don't test me, Carl growled, using one arm to shove Elijah toward the cruiser. This wasn't protocol. It was pageantry. For the neighbors, for the backup, for the power trip. But Elijah glanced at one of the fallen pages, just briefly. A barcode printed near the corner. To most, meaningless. To one figure parked in a black SUV across the street. It was a signal. They raised a phone. Quiet, discreet. On the porch, Linda Combs watched. No words, no phone. Just silence that said, I've seen this before. The jogger from earlier slowed. Didn't help. Just kept pace with the moment. Watching Elijah be dehumanized in real time. He probably doesn't live here, Officer Trent muttered, eyes flicking toward his superior. And like that, Carl's authority was reinforced by assumption alone. Then came the next move. Carl grabbed Elijah's arm and spun him with unnecessary force, slamming him against the cruiser's side. I said hands where I can see them. The cuffs clinked again, this time tighter. Not for safety, for punishment. Across the street, Ms. Hathaway, a local schoolteacher, stepped halfway out of her yard. Saw. Hesitated. Then slowly stepped back in. Her eyes said, "This isn't right." But her feet chose not to say it out loud. Elijah remained composed. Just one breath. Then one sentence. "You might want to double-check what you're escalating." Carl scoffed, lips curling like he'd already won. But across the street, a phone kept filming. And the man in the black SUV? He hadn't moved, but his finger was hovering over the screen. What would you do if someone challenged you publicly based only on assumption? Drop your response in the comments. And if this moment made you uneasy, hit like and subscribe. The moment Carl slammed Elijah against the hood, it echoed louder than the sirens he hadn't bothered to use. Metal kissed bone with a hard, sharp slap, the kind designed not just to restrain, but to humiliate. "You want to be difficult?" Carl growled, pinning Elijah's arm high. "We can do difficult." His voice rose, not for protocol, for the crowd, for dominance. Elijah didn't flinch, didn't fight. And that quiet? That was louder than Carl ever expected. The street fell still. Basketballs stopped bouncing in driveways. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Even Officer Trent paused, hand halfway to his radio. The only thing louder than the silence was the silence itself. "I've done nothing wrong," Elijah said, calm as ever. He didn't tremble, didn't raise his tone. He just stood there, spine straight, cuffs tight, presence grounded like a monument no one could tilt. Power radiated from his stillness, and Carl didn't even notice he was losing control of the moment. But someone else did. Elijah tapped his left thumb against his watch, twice. The screen blinked red for a split second, then went dark. Just a flash. Across the street, a man in mirrored sunglasses, Agent Ruiz, lowered them. His jaw tightened. Then he reached into his coat. A bystander leaned toward his friend. "I swear I've seen that guy before. Some DC thing?" His friend laughed. "Bet, maybe." Wrong again, but the laughter cracked the tension. Nervous, uninformed. Carl yanked Elijah's suit jacket off, shaking it out like it might spill contraband. Nothing. "No weapons? No ID? Not looking good," he said, fingers grazing Elijah's shoulder with a quick, deliberate roughness. A flex. A message, disrespect, broadcasted in high definition. And still, Elijah said nothing. Whispers rippled across the block. "Well, if he didn't do anything," someone mumbled, "why's he so calm?" Another answered, "Maybe because he didn't do anything." Lines were starting to form. Quiet ones, subtle ones, but they were forming. Elijah reached down, calm, cuffed, careful, and caught one of the wind-blown pages. He smoothed it, folded it, tucked it into the crook of his arm like a man organizing evidence, not defending himself. From behind a garden fence, a teenage girl went live. No comments, no captions. Just a close-up of injustice unfolding. Her face didn't flinch, but her camera was aimed like a weapon. Elijah shifted his cuffed wrist. A nearly invisible tracker beneath his sleeve clicked into place. On the other side of town, a screen blinked red inside a quiet federal ops room. Someone stood up, silent, his stance frozen. Elijah turned slightly, voice measured. "I've been auditing this district for 3 months. Unofficially. Now it's official." Carl stammered. I didn't know." But no one cared. No one responded. His voice didn't land anymore. Deputy Director Briggs stepped forward. "Effective immediately, precinct access is revoked. All investigations are paused. Internal affairs will lead from here." Elijah didn't smile, didn't flinch. He nodded once. Let the silence speak for him. Let justice do what it does best, quietly. 2 agents appeared with sealed folders and digital files in hand. They passed Elijah without pause, without question. Respect isn't loud, it's smooth, direct. Elijah finally turned to Carl. "You never asked who I was, you just decided." A single nod came from the crowd. Then, a few soft claps. Then, stillness again. But this time, it felt like reverence. "You chose bias," Elijah said. "You rejected truth. That's what you'll answer for." Even Officer Trent stepped back now, no longer standing beside Carl. Carl stood alone, sweating, silent. He tried to slip away, edging toward the curb. No words, just quiet desperation. "Remain where you are," Agent Duval commanded. "You're now under internal federal review. No badge, no shield, no exit." Director Briggs stepped closer. "Detective Reese, your position is terminated, effective immediately." Agent Ruiz added, "You'll now report to DOJ oversight. They'll see what we couldn't." This wasn't revenge. This was just the beginning. Carl's voice was barely audible. "It wasn't personal." Elijah looked at him. "It became personal the moment you made it public. Then he turned to the bystanders. To those who stayed silent, but stayed aware, thank you. His eyes met the teen girl with the live stream. She nodded. He nodded back. History had been made and captured. As Elijah walked past a cruiser, the reflection in the window revealed his full title. Deputy Director Elijah Kane, Counterintelligence Ops, FBI. Inside a nearby car, Troy Daniels sat back and whispered, "Damn. Do you think Detective Carl deserves forgiveness or should face the full consequences? Let us know in the comments. And if this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share it." As Elijah turned to leave, the crowd still hushed. Around him, Ms. Hathaway stepped forward. Her voice was barely louder than the wind. "I've never seen someone win without raising their voice," she said. It wasn't about rage, it was about presence. The footage went viral within hours. No dramatic captions, no screaming overlays. Just one headline, deliberate and sharp. FBI official silently exposes local corruption. And beneath it, thousands of comments. This is how power moves. When asked to speak publicly, Elijah kept it short. Power isn't volume, he said. It's vision. To those who feel unseen, he added, pausing, stay still. The right ones will notice. Weeks later, he returned to that same gate. This time, Officer Trent opened it. No hesitation. "Welcome back, sir." Elsewhere, Carl sat in a disciplinary hearing. No badge, no rebuttal, just listening. Sometimes silence isn't surrender, it's sentence enough. Back in D.C., Elijah entered a secured ops room. A folder sat waiting. The label read, Phase 2, National Oversight Deployment. This wasn't the end. It was ignition. As he stepped out into the hallway alone, he said it softly. To no one. To everyone. Legacy isn't in the noise you make. It's in the silence they remember you by. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that dignity belongs to everyone, not just the powerful. And in the comments, tell us, should Carl be forgiven or face every consequence?